Hello, and welcome to an adventure like no other. Far more than what you have known, there is something far more to be known than you can ever know. And it is all about you, the real you, your real awareness with your intuitive senses. You were never taught that the real you, your real awareness, is operating 5 bodies in cause and effect, restricting creation. You have been taught to think that you are only a one-dimensional human person, with a mind and emotions, and with a very short lifespan on this planet Earth. More than what your mind can grasp is your intuitive senses that can be opened to see beyond all your restrictions. You have always had an opening to see beyond what you have known, and this has been purposely kept from you, and this is where you have heard rumors and stories about your nightly dreams. Your so-called dreams is your opening to your intuitive senses that will allow you, the personal you, to excel beyond what you have previously known. Everyone has intuitive senses, and very few people take advantage of what is possible by recognizing something more than their mind can understand. Creation has its place for all of us, and then there is all life, which is far more than anything than what can become with creation. Everything we experience is necessary for us to survive with whatever we choose and decide our life to be. New Kevin Smith is the great witness to something more than what can be taught and learned in any school. It can be so that when anyone first listens to Kevin's intuitive side experiences, also known as real side experiences, from what their personal mind has known, Kevin's manner of expression will at first be rather different to comprehend. This is where this introduction and reading the new books and Facebook groups will help. Have fun deciding. DUANE the Great Writer and Seer.
In this real side experience, I would be moving from one dimensional position to another, transitioning from where I had been to where I was to establish myself next. Were I to just have the personal self-perspective to draw determination as to what was occurring, as the personal self deals with the simulation only, that which effects manifests from the ideas of what we are experiencing, very little could I have ascertained, as the visuals afforded were somewhat limiting. But through the real awareness afforded impressions, a real awareness that is through everything creational, being part of the isness everything reality that it is, all the ideas that manifest as every affected, simulated situation and circumstance, so despite the confusing, nonsensical nature of what was visually presented, so was made available these impressions, as to the essence of the simulated situation, the nature of the experience, through the ideas effecting it, as deciphered and recognized through the real awareness, and transmitted to the personal self. That I was in actuality transferring everything that effects, as my current multi-dimensional creational position, the ideas that are my consciousness, which manifest as my placement multi-dimensionally, to as though an alternative position, the equivalent of saving the data of a program that incorporates a computer game avatar, everything that makes it what it is, the agreement consciousness a construct, and then sending the data to an alternative arena where the game character, that which my real awareness animates through, can operate within. For indeed, this would be repositioning my consciousness in accordance with another position, that as we take on ideas that are dimensional positioning effected, as they become a part of the consciousness, effected are body forms which decode these newly installed consciousness ideas into the simulation we experience, as though we had switched computer games, if you will, the games as afforded through the eyes of our game-inserted avatars. The impression was of maintaining my intent with the ears, the real intent, that of the recognition of the true reality, as I made this repositioning adjustment, that if and when we do a reposition creationally, important is it that this real intent is held to. As easy is it to be lost in creation and the creational phenomena as we go about such activity. And as I made my transition, this real intent was indeed steadfast. The exact nature of the creational adjustment I couldn't exactly, literally describe, but one that didn't detract from my awareness process, and during the transition so I would be attacked by hordes of dark force-orientated beings, as though they were operating in an attempted disrupting capacity as I went about this, as though an opportunity to interfere, akin to being cyber-attacked as an analogy, while trying to transfer valuable data from one computer to another, and where the transfer, my creational positioning readjustment, may be potentially prevented. But as it transpired, these interfering agents were unsuccessful, my transition complete, and the scene would fade. As I said, a seemingly necessary alteration from the creational side, shipping my consciousness across the dimensions and incorporating other dimensional position-affecting ideas that would manifest as altogether alternative positioning. I would find myself momentarily in a future view situation as impressions revealed, effects that are present now as all ideas will be in isness reality terms, though take the moments they will to process through to the physical, a somewhat delayed affair from what are in actuality instant effects generated from their causes, through a consciousness processing that has these effects gradually rolled out physical level-wise, as the consciousness will have, as part of its construct, time and space ideas incorporated, that the effects are not immediate, but delayed, as I said. In this case, it seemed the new presentation was gaining far greater attention and acknowledgement on a vast global Earth scale, and indeed large numbers of humans from all walks of life and professions were involved with the promoting of the years pertaining real references and education. For indeed I would be present in a large and packed to capacity with humans grand auditorium, a setting like those you may see during movie award and Oscar distributing gatherings. As I said, humans throughout the spectrum of the social systems were involved with promoting the new presentation in the various ways that they were, including celebrities, Hollywood movie producers, etc., for indeed several movie directors were receiving accolades for their contributory documentaries regarding the references of the years, etc., and I would be sat among the audience, bearing witness to this, DUANE present also, with what was overall the potentiality of DUANE's new presentation being accepted, well received, and circulated on a vast global scale through every media and technological means available. This was in effect now a situation of human agreement that had made this so, but that it becomes a physical level manifest depends on if it is held to as an idea agreement long enough for it to process through to actualization on the physical level. For although the movie is complete on the disc, the effect, the end of the movie, already present with the movie's start, the idea that set it in motion, from the personal physical level perspective, This completed movie must be sat through to a conclusion. The idea agreement effecting it must be held to until the movie's end physical level actualization is reached. But regardless that this is an agreement in human consciousness, this vast planetary acceptance and indeed promotion of the new presentation is positively promising, to say the least. In a scene that followed, although a point-to-point motion is unnecessary on the real side, the real awareness, as part of the isness everything, has access to every idea. This everything reality permeates through, including the ideas that effect as every dimensional position, so any of these ideas can be agreed with, and the affected simulation experienced. Through inserted body form avatars, the real awareness animates through, on occasion, rather than directly placing the body forms. We may make use of consciousness decided and effected means of dimensional transportation, the portals, the spacecraft, etc., generally as an aid to recollection of the experience on waking, or we may devise our own unique means of real side dimensional traversing. I have made mention of my own equivalent of the time-travelling machine as utilised by Doctor Who from the series by the same name, a machine he calls the TARDIS, and I would be traversing multi-dimensions in my TARDIS again here, transporting a number of other individuals with me, that we would reach a particular position, manifesting in a larger cube-shaped chamber and under the scrutiny of an elderly individual wearing a flat cap, the kind that Val has a tendency to wear on the physical. A theme of my real side experiences in recent months has been the developing of the consciousness that greater abilities are made available. The real awareness is somewhat unlimited in its ability where our simulated real side body forms are concerned, nothing beyond our ability to handle or deal with, but absent of the real awareness, should we be, say, momentarily disconnected from it, that the capability it can afford our simulated forms is not available, then all we have are our skills and attributes, as developed through a consciousness, to fall back on. And so, in the event of being as the isolated consciousness a personal self on the real side, as we develop greater abilities which become as part of the consciousness program, so we are less vulnerable and better able to handle any eventuality, be it environmental or in regards to other individuals. And as everything we create must manifest eventually on the physical, these additional consciousness-installed attributes will at some stage be available on the physical level, that again will serve as an aid to enhanced survival. And so myself and others on the real side have been put through a number of these consciousness-altering experiences that effect manifest as the assumption of greater body form ability, and this scene would be one more example of this. That having arrived within this cube chamber with my group via my TARDIS, we now were practicing various skills and abilities as now made available through our consciousness-enhancing alterations under the watchful eye of the old man in the cap, that impressions revealed was a real guide, marking, overseeing, and evaluating our progress. For we would be flying, levitating, passing through the walls of the cube chamber, as though we could alter our body frequencies in relation to the walls, that they no longer presented as a solid, etc., among other skills we were exercising, as I said, overall, as an aid to survival multi-dimensionally and potentially physical level eventually, in the absence of the real awareness afforded unlimitlessness, should such be denied for whatever reason. In the final scene, I would now be operating alone, but entering a large chamber where multitudes of other beings were present. All would be human as far as appearances went. In the centre of this chamber was a large structure, and impressions revealed I had experienced this before, and the purpose this structure served, though had no personal reference memory of it. Very likely familiarity stemming from the real awareness that as part of the isness everything, permeating through all consciousness affected form and feature, so every idea, as it effects into every simulated situation, is available and known to it, and therefore would be familiar. For the structure served as a means of accessing another dimensional position from the position we currently were in, as though the structure, looking somewhat like a large cylinder of crystalline rock, could emit a frequency that aligns the position we were in with another dimensional position and serve as a conduit to this alternative dimension. An alternative dimension where a variety of alien body forms resided, those not of a destructive or ill-intended persuasion, but more so those operating benevolently, and necessary was it seemingly that I establish a contact with them through this means, by opening a portal to their dimensional position, that they are afforded access to where this large group of humans and myself were stationed. The reasons for this potential interaction wasn't revealed, or the species of alien, but as I said, the impression of having done this before, and now doing so again, as though the presence of this large group of humans and myself were required for the crystalline structure to be activated, a method that wasn't made apparent, but the sense that it was known to me, and rather second nature, as they say. The scene would switch before this bridge, this conduit, could be forged to this other dimensional position where the undisclosed in form alien beings resided in, as now I would be in an open countryside setting. I would be present with a group of what impressions revealed were very aware humans, and accompanying them, so I would traverse through a series of what seemed to be positions within this environment, and as we reached the end, I would be relocated to an alternative dimensional version of this overall scene. I would find myself with the same group of beings, though these dimensional versions of them were far more aware than those from the previous dimensional position, though the same beings. Again, visually, discernment of the situation was difficult to determine, but impressions revealed that just as where I had transitioned to as though an alternative dimensional placement where this overall experience began, this was a further step in regards to this, as though I was progressively enhancing my multi-dimensional positioning in such a way that was increasingly conducive where my awareness process was concerned. For indeed, the initial position in the open environment was easy to maintain, whereas this alternative position was far more difficult and required an increased focus that I could be retained within it. As I said, this alternative version of the environment had the versions of the humans present with far greater awareness, as though this was necessary for the perpetuation of a placement in the enhanced dimensional position. And again, the sense of traversing through stations or positions in this enhanced alternative dimensional environment as though a progression of a kind, all creational simulated representation, as in actuality continued awareness is a reality absent of literal ideas. There is no up, down, motion, descent, or ascending, but these are simulated references utilized to express the progress we are making on the real side. Required was it to at one moment return to the previous dimensional lesser position, to as though make a few alterations, that my positioning with the enhanced dimensional version could be stabilized, and as I returned to the more advanced awareness position, it was as though there was a slight time discrepancy that I had to account for, that I could align myself properly. I would explain this to the humans, the more aware counterparts, than their versions from the previous dimensional position, and they all seemed to be geniuses in regards to time, space, and dimensions as they play out in multi-dimensional creation. The objective seemed to be, as I said, reaching the final position in what was a sequence, and this I would do so with this group of humans, representing our ability to not only stabilize in this dimension that required greater awareness that this could be so, but potentially, as we reached the final position, we would be preparing to relocate again to yet another dimensional version of this environmental scene, which in theory would require still greater awareness to achieve and indeed maintain. The awareness process is a series of steps or stages, as endless as the true reality we are endeavouring to recognize, and this may have been the representation here, or perhaps the possibility of assuming better positioning, creationally speaking, that facilitates more so the awareness process. That as everything equals itself, we are positioned in life in accordance with the extent of our willingness and intent to stand with it, and the possibility has been presented in previous real side experiences, that of the necessity even of simulator transfer, should the one we currently are in reach a stage of deterioration where no longer is it a feasible overall training realm for our ears recognizing real purpose. Impressions wouldn't precisely reveal the reasoning behind what was the assumption of alternative creational dimensional positioning, only of that being what was taking place, and that required was an ever greater focus and intent set with the ears, mirrored as a greater awareness acquired that such could occur.
We'll see what happens. In other words, Rebusar and the boys are setting all this up, setting the stage, you might say, for this to occur, and we'll see who shows up and takes part. It's a whole lot.
Remember, Johanna from Africa too had that experience with the NuPresentation being a worldwide position too.
Yeah. So it's been shown to a lot of people. Yeah, that's very, very good.